And Jesus said, so in everything you do, do to others what you would have them do to you. For this sums up the law and the prophets. And can I just say, when you act that way, you're not going to make the news. That's not newsworthy. But if those of us who claim to be kingdom people would practice the golden rule, America would be great because we would be good. That's what Paul is saying. He says, don't slander anybody. Think about who he's writing to. By their own admission, they're liars, they're lazy, they're brutes. Cretans, by their own admission, live like that. But on the island of Crete, Christians on the island of Crete, their life was to stand out in this stark contrast to the lives of the people around them, to be different, to be truth tellers, to be kind to other people, even if you don't agree with them, to be peaceable, don't be a fighter. Gentle means a person whose temper is always under control. Paul writes, at one time we too were foolish, disobedient, deceived, and enslaved by all kinds of passions and pleasures. We lived in malice and envy, being hated and hating one another. And in verse 9, he talks about how it plays out. But avoid foolish controversies and genealogies and arguments and quarrels about the law, because they are unprofitable and useless. The Jewish scribes spent endless hours discussing what could and couldn't be done, what was work on the Sabbath day, what was clean and what was unclean. And I just want to say, it's still, today, 21st century America, it's still way easier to debate issues of our faith than to actually be kind and considerate. It's way easier to debate and argue about our faith than to be helpful at home and honest at work. And that's not to say there's no place for discussion, even disagreement on a big scale. But discussion that doesn't end up in some sort of action is largely wasted time. So Paul says, warn a divisive person once, and then warn them a second time. And after that, have nothing to do with them. You may be sure that such people are warped and sinful. They are self-condemned. He would write to the church in Rome, if it's possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. Can't tell you how thankful I am he added or included those words, as far as it depends on you. Because there is only so much you can do. You have people in your sphere of influence that's in your world. They don't care what you want. And they will not bring peace into your world. They just will not have it. But Paul is saying, just don't be the source of that. Make every effort to live at peace. Think about the other person's feelings. In the book of Philippians, he says, even beyond your own, to all people, not just those who can reciprocate or who live on the same level as you. He's saying, treat the server at the restaurant just like you would the owner. Treat the Uber driver, be as polite to the Uber driver as you would be to the pilot of the airplane. Be as kind to the janitor as you are to the principal of the school. You know what the problem is? We don't believe that. Maybe on the surface, because we're in church, so it all sounds good. But if you were to scratch below too far, deep down, most disciples of Jesus just don't believe that doing unto others as you would have others do unto you is going to make any real difference in our nation. We're too far gone. We're too far down the road. What we need is force. What we need is political power if we can just get the right people in office. I agree with Bob Russell, and these are in your notes. He said there's a constant temptation for those of us who genuinely follow Jesus. We love Jesus, we want to follow him, and the temptation is for most of us to put our trust in the love of power rather than the power of love. Tony Campolo, and quite frankly, I don't agree with much of what he says anymore, but I do agree with this. The biblical Jesus wants a church that changes the world not from a position of power, but from a position of love and commitment. Christians who follow the cultural Jesus seem to have this idea that if we just had enough power, if we could get enough people in office, if we could just take over America, we can force America to be righteous. And then he says, why didn't Jesus think about that? He said, I believe we need to change the world with the weapons of the church rather than the weapons of the world. We have another style. We have another way. It's loving servanthood. It's giving ourselves away. It's moving in and caring. It's redeeming and not destroying.